so easy. Take good care of the children.
Welcome back to our panel discussion on the Roving Caregivers Program. It's very clear that Caribbean countries can benefit both economically and socially from early childhood stimulation and education. I want to talk some more to Susan Branca-Lashley about the Caribbean Child Support Initiative's role in this, and what have you discovered from that findings, the impact study that your organization funded?
Okay, we've been working closely with Bernard Van Leer Foundation on this impact study, which is being done by the Amsterdam Institute for International Development, and an individual researcher who actually is Jamaican, Dr. Eleanor Wint. It is a qualitative and both quantitative study, meaning that we're looking at numbers as well as qualitative or human experiential issues.
Yes.
And it's intended to be longitudinal.
Can you give us some of the really key findings quickly? I mean,
findings in terms of children, first of all, is that children from 6 months to 18 months, we saw quite an impact on their cognitive as well as social and emotional development. Older children, we saw quite an impact on their expressive language skills. With respect to parents, which was quite exciting for us, was that parents felt a lot more self-confident in their ability to raise their children. They questioned their disciplinary practices and certainly felt that they were in more control of their children's ability to learn. And then as quite a multiplier effect, as we call it, the impact on these young caregivers who we call rovers. These young persons felt so much self-confidence and certainly felt that they had an ability.
They become leaders in the community.
Oh yeah, by virtue of this, the level of self-respect that they have for themselves and how the community respects them as well has made a marked difference on how they see themselves. So there were 3 critical areas that the study was able to pick up on: children, parents, and the rovers.
Okay, well, let me now welcome and introduce a new member of our panel. She's Judith Alpuche, who is the CEO for the Ministry of Human Development and Transformation in Belize. Welcome, it's wonderful to have you. Can you share a little bit about your experiences and the findings that you have had in terms of the impact of the Roving Caregivers Program in your nation?
Well, our program, as Sean said in the first segment, isn't as developed perhaps as others, but we're certainly seeing already some of what Susan was talking about coming out of our experience in Belize. And we have done our program with indigenous Maya communities. And I really want to pick up on that point because we are seeing all that Susan said that is a fact, documented fact in St. Lucia. But for us also, I want to pick up on the issue of the rovers, because we have used indigenous Maya girls, young women, and in a traditional society, I mean, their status is certainly at the bottom tier, and their involvement in this program, we are seeing that their status is improving in their communities. So for us, from that perspective, that impact on the rovers is even more dramatic. And so far as what it means later on down the line for the acceptance of different roles, more modern roles perhaps for women, or women as partners in the development process. So I think that's one thing that I certainly would want us to watch very closely as we work. But we are seeing quite a dramatic impact. And from, you know, when you sit and think about, okay, so what programs are we going to introduce, you know, what policy direction, studies like the one that CCSI and Bernard Van Leer Foundation have are embarked on, is a gold mine for us from the policy perspective, because it isn't you know, something that you can't go to your Ministry of Finance with good feelings or good intentions. They want good, hard data. And to be able to say, this is Caribbean data that we're bringing to the table, to say that this works in the Caribbean. And because of the similarities, this social and
Yes.
economic and political similarities. I think
Yes.
it is a goal.
It's very
for us.
transferable too.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Judith. You know what is exciting me about this? She's now adding a component for your study the next time around because she's saying two things. It's impacting also the possibility of how gender relationships evolve, and it's also impacting the whole issue of indigenous cultural patterns and how those continue in the future. I'm really excited about this from a regional policy perspective, and I want to introduce now Patricia McPherson, who is the Senior Project Officer in Education for CARICOM. It's wonderful to have you. Are you excited about this as much as the rest of us?
From a regional perspective, it is indeed thrilling.
Fabulous.
As Mrs. Alpucci just mentioned, as Judith just mentioned, we cannot bring issues of anecdote to ministers or heads of government.
Yes.
We have to have evidence. And for us, this is exciting to have a longitudinal study which will show the benefits. And as Susan mentioned, benefits not only as it would accrue to the children, but to the community at large, to parents. And for us, in terms of the Secretariat, we are very excited about it. You know, when we talk about, as we know, the region, we have signed on to many of the protocols. We know about the EFA, Education for All. We talk about equity when we talk about, when we speak about education. But the question we want to ask, is there really equity? Because there is a group who will be more advantaged than the other. And I think the RCP, and when we think about the motto of the RCP, taking care, it's our responsibility to take care of the least, or the, you know, the seeming voiceless, or the least in our, in our communities. And it's to those groups that the RCP targets, the most vulnerable children, the most at-risk children. And they too have an equal opportunity of participating and benefiting from the educational experiences that many children from the more affluent or the not that vulnerable situation, those are the ones that benefit from. So for us at the region, I think this is very critical to know that we have a study that says that this is working for it's a quality program, and it's working for the peoples in the community. Also for education, I think very importantly, we talk about male marginalization and male non-participation. As we know, Professor Bailey has done a lot of work on these issues, and this is an issue that permeates the entire region. If from this early we can see perhaps the way boys learn or the way girls learn, I think it will assist us in terms of teacher education and how do we, as educators, how do we interface with our males and females? One of the issues that the study pointed to is that girls seem to gravitate to more educational toys and particular toys, whereas boys gravitate to another set of material.
More fun.
So it therefore says to us perhaps what sort of experiences in the formal setting are we giving to the male student, the male child, as against the female child, when we expect all our children to participate and benefit from the experiences. But perhaps boys, as we all know, the brains are wired differently, so the sort of educational toys and experiences that they should have, as teachers, perhaps we need to look at that again.
It certainly lays the groundwork for the Caribbean to develop a thought leadership process that can impact globally.
That's right.
In terms of how child development and nurture occurs, because this is not only needed in the Caribbean region, in many deep rural communities all across the world, we can see the need. And so, Utilia,
it's interesting that you said that, Elaine, because we went to Ghana about 4 years ago at the International Early Childhood Conference there. We were asked to present the model. And one of the issues that was uppermost in the minds of many of the educators was the same question you raised. You can't take anecdotes to government. We need data. And at that time, we had done a cost-benefit analysis here in Jamaica, as well as an impact study. And everybody wanted a copy of the cost-benefit study because they said they need to show how the cost, will it be cost-effective? And your study has shown that the RCP is cost-effective. And more exciting data, which I don't think I can comment, and Susan will do that, is even more recent and even more effective in terms of how costs effective the RCP is.
Yeah.
Well, I think she's leading me into a priority subject for the next segment of our discussion. And so I want to thank you all for sharing this with us. I truly am blown away that something as simple as this. And so it is again to note how regional creativity, Caribbean creativity, that we need to pay attention to our own, concepts and our intellectual property too.
That's right.
And in such an area as early childhood development, having such a broad, deep, high impact, it's truly inspiring. We're going to come back to this. We still want to talk some more, learn some more at length and at depth and at breadth about the impact. We want to talk about the impact on the caregivers themselves. We want to talk some more about the impact on parents and to learn some of the methodology that was used in developing this study, and in particular, why is this necessary now as something for governments, the private sector, the community, and you and I to think about. We'll be back.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. Got it? Taking care of us can be so easy.
Take good care of the children.